Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're here inside with the dogs again. There's tequila, there's whiskey, there's vodka, and Pippin and Magic are hanging out in the house. The video's not about you guys, so stay out of the video. Anyway, today we are going to talk about feeding your livestock guardians. And I know someone's going to come at me for something I say in this video. That's okay. Because it's a very touchy subject for a lot of people. A lot of people get worked up not just about what they should feed their dogs, but about what you should feed your dog. So to be very clear, it doesn't matter to me what you feed your dog. Okay, every dog is an individual. Different people have different preferences for how they feed their dog. And some dogs need different foods than other dogs. For example, some dogs have allergies. Some dogs can't tolerate certain foods. He can't tolerate raw foods. Poor Whiskey here, if you give him even just a raw egg, he starts to vomit. He's got kind of a delicate tummy. So, Whiskey's a delicate guy. He can't handle things. So, different animals have different tolerances for different things. They're all individuals, very much like humans. So, what works for one doesn't work for the other. So, to be very clear again, what you feed your dog doesn't matter. But I've been asked how I feed my dog. There are a lot of different takes on what you should feed your livestock guardian. They're really well-intentioned most of the time. Most people are not telling you to feed your dog something that they believe will hurt your dog. So most of the people giving you advice on what to feed your dog are well-intentioned. My first bit of advice is talk to your vet. I know there's a lot of vitriol tossed towards vets sometimes for no good reason. They really do know about pet nutrition. Okay, they really, really do. They are educated in it, and it is worth talking to your vet about how you should feed your particular dog. Again, dogs are individuals. So, my take. Dogs should be fed, all dogs, not just livestock guardians, but you should feed them a scientifically sound, balanced diet. There's more than one way to do this. Some people want to just feed kibble. Kibble works. Love kibble. It's easy. It can be inexpensive. It can also cost you an arm and a leg. You might want to feed raw. Some people really like raw feeding. That can work too. If you're going to feed raw and it's not a commercially prepared diet, then you're going to need probably your vet to help walk you through what you should and should not include. And even in a commercially prepared diet, there's a lot of options. You could get cold pressed, you could get true raw, whatever. Maybe you would rather cook for your dog. I cook for these guys a little bit. Frankly, I don't have time. These are big dogs. I don't have time to cook enough food for it to replace their kibble. So I cook for them in addition to kibble. However you feed them, the biggest problem with livestock guardians is actually overfeeding. So that man there is chonky. He's not a livestock guardian, but he's chonky. I know he looks really fluffy, because he is. Underneath that fluff, he is actually quite chonky. And mostly that's because he's lazy. He doesn't eat that much dog food, to be honest, but he is a lazy bum, and Tristan does give him pretty much every snack. So he's chonky. She's fairly trim. Dogs should have a waist. I'm not going to make her get up, but when she is up and running around, you can see that her body goes in at the waist, and dogs should. They should have a waist. Vodka has a waist now. Now, he is finally emerging from that round puppy stage, so he's got a waist where it basically looks like he goes from his rib cage and then goes right up. And it looks fantastic. He is fantastically built. Right, Vodka? Vodka. Vodka, are you alive? Vodka. Vodka. He doesn't care. He's like, I'm ignoring you right now, Mom. I'm tired from running around after those foxes this morning. Yeah. He did his job. So, the biggest problem is the tendency to overfeed and for your dog to get really overweight. Being overweight is not good for any dog, but especially in a large breed dog, An overweight livestock guardian has a shortened lifespan, and they're already with us for a shorter amount of time than smaller breeds. So shortening that lifespan on top of that is really tragic. And it can lead to various other health problems and put excess strain on their joints, which again, they don't need. So don't overfeed. You don't want fat dogs. So she's not fat at all. She is very trim, very lithe, very beautiful. Yes. Now she has a little shepherd in her. So because she has a little bit of shepherd in her, she's a little bit of a more trim dog anyway. He's chonky. He is a purebred Great Pyrenees, so he's built heavier anyway. So he should be heavier than her, but he should still have that waist. It's really important. A healthy dog has a waist. Okay, they're not basically a sausage. They should not be a sausage. If your dog looks like a sausage, they're overweight. So it's really important to keep their weight down. Remember also that livestock guardians evolved eating kind of a minimalist diet. Okay, they didn't always have access, being out there with the sheep and everything, they didn't always have access to a lot of food. So they kind of evolved to eat less food than some of the other dogs you might have raised. So livestock guardians require less food anyway. Anyway, on to what do I feed? I feed kibble. Okay? And I cook a little bit for them. If we're having steaks, my dad is over barbecuing steaks. If he's doing that, then the dogs get a steak and they share it and we cut it up. And, so we do cook for them a bit. Okay? This guy has a sensitive stomach. So for this guy, I actually have to cook a pot of rice in chicken broth and add that for him every day. He needs a bit of that just to keep his stomach settled. He has a weird digestion. He's not a livestock guardian dog, though, but he has a weird digestive system. He can't eat some of the stuff that other dogs can eat. These two can eat pretty much anything, right? He can't. He can't eat. He gets sick if he eats weird things. Even though he can eat plastic bottles, apparently. You're weird. Anyway, that's not the point. So I do kibble and I do cook a bit. I do not do grain-free kibble. I specifically do not do grain-free kibble. I don't like some of the stuff that when they remove the grains from a dog food, they replace it with other things. I don't like some of that stuff. So I don't do grain-free. My guys don't have a problem being on dog foods with grain. So none of them have a sensitivity to grain, nothing like that. So they are fine on just a standard kibble. It's important when you're picking a kibble that you look at more than just the price. Because yes, you sort of get what you pay for. But here, anyway, prices can range from about $15 for a bag of food. For about for a big bag of food. So, 7 kilograms or so. All the way up to like $100 for that same size. There is a huge range. And while I don't like the cheapest of the cheap, the really expensive brands are not significantly better than the mid-range brands anyway. So it's important to flip that bag over and check the nutritional makeup of that food. Just flip the bag over. The label's on there. At least where we are, we have pretty good labeling requirements. So you just flip that bag over and look at the label. It'll tell you. And there's not a huge difference between really expensive food and the cheaper and the mid-range kibble. There is a bigger difference between the really cheap kibble and the really expensive kibble. So I don't love the really, really cheap stuff, but I'm also definitely not going to feed the $100 a bag stuff because I go through a bag a week. I'm not spending $400 on dog food. It's not going to happen because I don't eat $400 worth of groceries in a month. So they don't get that much dog food. So I kind of go mid-range, and I spend about $200 a month on dog food for these three because he actually eats a significant amount. She eats the most. I know she is the leanest and the trimmest, but she eats the most, partly because she's got that shepherd in her, so she's not pure livestock guardian, which means she has slightly different metabolism than he does. Okay, so he requires less food to be in tip-top shape than she does. So she does eat more than he does. Which sounds funny because she is so lean and trim. But she does indeed eat more than he does. So I don't like going with the cheapest food, but middle of the road is fine. Don't let anybody shame you for not spending $100 a week on dog food. Okay, it's really important that sometimes we live within our means, and if that means buying a cheaper dog food, then you buy a cheaper dog food. It's not that critical. As long as your vet is happy with your dog's health and your dog's weight, then you're doing something right. So there's a lot of push out there sometimes where people will tell you if you're not feeding either raw food or the highest quality, most expensive brands of dog food, that you're doing something wrong. You're not. It's absolutely okay to feed a cheaper brand of food. Now, I don't feed the cheapest, but if you have to feed the cheapest because your pocketbook demands it, that's what you do. There's a reason there is a variety of dog foods out there to cater to everyone. So as long as your dog is happy and healthy on that dog food, you're fine. Sorry. Big cough there. At least none of the dogs woke up. Yesterday I woke them up with my cough. So the other thing someone mentioned in my video from last week is that I free feed. How do I keep them from being overweight if I free feed? Good question. First of all, they're raised free feeding. I talked about that last week. They're raised that way so they never feel the need to just eat, because it's always there anyway. They can always come back later. But also, you notice we feed inside. The dogs are outside a lot. So because they're outside so much, they actually don't have the ability to just stand around and eat all day. They come in, they eat, they nap, they go back outside. They come in, they eat, they nap, they go back outside. So they're outside a lot. Therefore, their opportunity to sit there and be bored and just eat is more limited. So yes, we free feed. There's always food in the bowls, but they actually don't have 24/7 access to it. A couple hours here and there, they have access to their food and they can eat all they want in those couple of hours. Otherwise, they're outside doing their job. Except him. He doesn't have a job except to sit there and be fluffy and chonky. But these two have a job to do. So Tequila and Vodka do have a job to do. So they're out there doing their job, so they're not sitting inside eating all day. Right now they're napping. It's just easier to film them when they're napping. But that's how we reduce that, because some people had questions about that last week, about how do you keep them from getting super fat if they always have access to food. They don't always have access to it. I know, we free feed, it's always out, yes, but the dogs are not always in the house and can't always just stand there and eat. They have lives. They're doing stuff. They have jobs. So ultimately, I want people to feed their dogs as an individual. Remember to talk to your vet if you have any concerns about what to feed, what not to feed. No, I don't feed raw. No, I'm not going to feed raw. I feed kibble and I cook for them a little bit, because that's what works best for myself and for my dogs. Our dogs are happy. They are healthy. They're in good shape. They're not overweight except for him. And that has nothing to do with what we're feeding. That has everything to do with him and Tristan. It's Tristan's fault he's fat. But our livestock guardians are in good shape. They're in good health. And you should definitely talk to your vet and work out a plan for feeding your dogs that works for you and your dogs. Because just like humans, dogs are individuals. Sometimes they have individual needs that you absolutely have to take into account. Okay? So don't let anybody shame you if you're feeding your dogs in a way that works for you. That's about it for us here today in Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.